Hello and welcome to Black Bear Atheist. Today we're going to learn how evolution is actually supporting systematic racism. I mean, I'm lost for words. I thought usually people on the right don't believe even in systematic racism. I thought, I thought that was the play that you want to not have it existing. You don't want to ignore racism to begin with. You don't want to address it because it's not something worth addressing. I thought that was the play. Are we changing the play and saying systematic racism actually exists? I thought we don't want to teach history. This is surprising. But let's get into the video and see how evolution is actually supporting systematic racism, which all of a sudden people like Answers in Genesis want to admit that actually exists. The same people that would want to deny that racism even is a thing. Systematic racism. Let's be specific.
At the end of this video, you'll know how and why systemic racism is being taught today and why the Bible destroys those ideas.
Make it make sense. I like that phrase. Make it make sense. I guess by the end of this, we shall understand how evolution is racist and how, support systematic racism, not just racist. It's deeper. And now the Bible actually doesn't like it at all. It's against it.
Headlines touting the prevalence of systemic racism permeating Western culture continue to jam news and our social media feeds. And yet, underneath
No, no, it doesn't. It doesn't jam anyone's feed. It's being ignored. I mean, that's the entire idea why, the Republicans Party don't want the critical race theory, which teaches about the racism in the United States and how this systematic racism actually is a thing. But because it's critical race theory, apparently, is not being taught. But apparently, we are getting a feed every day talking about black people issue, the minorities in the United States oppressed. We are getting feeds. I haven't seen any.
all of the turmoil, barely noticed, like a virus of the mind, is the hidden source behind it. Ask yourself, what system could be broadcasting an ongoing racist message into the minds of virtually every person in culture? Well, for several generations now, the vast majority of young people in the West have been educated in state run schools that teach the concepts of humanism as a foundational tenet. To understand what that means, let's examine the Humanist Manifesto briefly. Religious humanists regard the universe as
Okay, hold on. Before we do all this, by the way, young people are most likely less to be racist because they're actually in a diverse group than older people. They're less to be conservative in their ideas than older generations. That's because they're in environments like schools with different people, with different groups of people mingling and mangling. Okay, so they're less to be, I don't know, racist than people who are just went to an all white school. They're less to have that, idea in their head that, a minority group, the stereotype, and keep on with that till they grow till old age. This has been a thing for what, 80 years now? That's why young people were extremely involved in the civil rights movement, the movement in the 60s, 70s, 80s, extremely involved in politics and everything. But I guess they've been taught to be racist, so they're more racist, apparently.
self existing and not created. Humanism believes that man is part of nature and that he emerged as the result of a continuous process. As non theists, we begin with humans, not God, nature, not deity. And to emphasize how
No, I don't think you have to be an atheist or non-theist to be a humanist. Not sure where he's getting this humanist manifesto from, but okay.
that's taught in schools, in 1995, the US National Association of Biology Teachers stated the following: the diversity of life on Earth is the outcome of evolution, an unsupervised, impersonal, unpredictable, and natural process of temporal descent. Now, do you see any differentiation with a true difference between these two declarations? I mean, one is supposedly a philosophical creed, while the other is apparently a scientific definition. But unsupervised evolution means there's no creator God. Impersonal would mean life has no special meaning. Unpredictable
Which it doesn't. And natural selection is the supervisor, which it chooses based on who actually survives. I mean, based on who is fitter to survive in an environment.
means we're the product of blind chance, and natural process means processes inherent in matter. So the conclusions of
Before you draw your conclusion, this is a reality whether you like it or not. And again, natural selection is not really blind.
both statements are one and the same. This means that the vast majority of young, impressionable minds in the West, including children from Christian homes, are being systematically programmed through the teaching of the story of atheistic evolution to explain how we got here without God, from kindergarten all the way through to university. Now,
Now, how many kids in school are actually listening in any of their classes? Not a lot. I mean, I'm taking a wild guess here. I didn't really pay attention. There were classes that I paid attention in, history, math, because I like those two. The other rest, I just wanted to get a grade and get out. So, how many children actually retain information that they learn in one specific class and actually keep it over time? Not a lot, because you've made system, a school system that's based on grades, meaning more people are actually going for a grade, and once the semester is over, most of the informations are going behind their head. But then again, they're being taught evolution. I barely remember anything about evolution being taught, and I was taught once in sixth grade by a Christian teacher. By a Christian teacher. She was the leader in the Christian club of my middle school. That's the person who taught me about evolution, which obviously I discarded. They keep blaming the school system and acting like the school system is so important. But in reality, it's not really the driving force of the change. It's just people's children are starting to wake up and see that diversification is a good thing. With their diverse background in schools, the different people they meeting, I don't know, they could meet an atheist, they could meet an agnostic, different religions, comparing ideas in school with different people with diverse background. I mean, the people that have met me will talk about, ask me about Nigeria and I'll give them some few interesting things and it will just it will broaden their mind. And that's what we have. Could that have influenced more people turning away from religion? Yes. Is it really just the school system? No, because the school system in America is not that great.
racism, by definition, requires the concept of different human races supposedly existing to justify the belief that one's own race is somehow superior to another. Let's think. What teaching specifically promotes that concept? The idea of superiority of one race over another requires some sort of scale to judge the races against, to decide who is more or less advanced than the others. Now, where do we see that idea taught? Well, the story of evolution provides just such a set of
No, it doesn't. And evolution is not a story, it's a theory, the theory of evolution. At least you can get that right. The theory of evolution does not tell a story as in fairy tale. It tells the history of how diversification came to organisms on the planet, and it backs this up with facts. And I must mention, it's because you're fitted for your environment, just because you're a monkey or you're a cat doesn't mean you're, I don't know, better. It doesn't, it's not a hierarchy. The point of natural selection is to get the person that's more fitter for the environment. It's not trying to get someone who is, apparently better than every other race. That's not the point.
metrics. A simple, common example is the classic ape to man diagram, so popular in textbooks and t shirts that it's imprinted into the minds of millions of students every year.
Honestly, I think this diagram is just, it's okay. How do I explain this? It's not really exactly how it happened. It was a diversification, meaning there were branches. We branch from our ancestors. I mean, this diagram to people like Christians, they would just think, oh, a monkey somehow transformed into an ape, walking like a human, and somehow, oh, we're here. But it's more of a diversification. This type of species of monkeys still exist. This kind of people, I believe they went extinct, but this type of monkeys still exist. We have a common ancestor and they branched out. So some aspect of this species still exists because it's a branch. It's more like a tree. You have a root and then you have different branches. You're more connected to your recent, I don't know, your recent connection than the previous one. So that's why we have similarities to apes and monkeys. But to show it like this, it's like a werewolf transformation. To Christians who apparently are just not looking at the evidence. I don't know. I don't like this diagram that much.
It almost always depicts dark skinned, hairy apes turning into Caucasians over millions of years, and so provides a simple visual concept illustrating the less melanin you have in your skin, supposedly, the more advanced you are. The
And no, that's not what really that depicts. I think it's talking about the species, and that's not exactly what you're saying. I mean, we're not the same as monkeys. We just had a common ancestor. We're not the same as even our ancestors. To some extent, we're a different species. So it's not about your color of your skin. It's more about the speciation. It's more about the diversification in your species. We're not the same species, and that's what it's supposed to be showing. Where you get this idea from, I mean, from his butt. I actually do know this time. From his butt.
idea is simple to grasp. We're just evolved animals, and some races are supposedly more advanced than others. Although supposedly scientific, it's racist to its core. Have you ever watched a
Except it's not.
European soccer game where one of the dark skinned players runs out onto the field and a camera pans the crowd and reveals a group of light skinned
Imagine seeing Usain Bolt play soccer.
people with their hands bunched up under their armpits, screeching monkey noises at them? Pretty racist, isn't it? But why is it racist? Why is it monkey noises and not kitty cat noises or bird noises? No, it's monkey noises. So, what's the real message they're conveying to the darker skinned person? The underlying idea
Yes, that is more similar to monkeys than they are. Oh wow. Like we all get the idea of the racist term in it, the terminology in it. You'll get why they're doing it. It's the same thing while, I don't know, people who want to be racist to Chinese people would like squint their eyes or something like stupid like that. So,
is you are closer to the apes. You are less evolved than we are. Therefore,
except that's wrong. That's actually wrong. That's not true.
or we're superior and we can mock you. Think of the older but
And that's literally not like in every metrics, like scientists studying this, there's no difference between someone that's black and someone that's white. This is actual studies. There's no difference in their education. Or whether if you give them the same education, the same background, they will end up giving you about the same result. They're not less intelligent. We're not, I guess, more intelligent. We are humans. So this entire idea that evolution supports this, it's just wrong. Because evolution does not entirely address this. Now, the diversification in the colors is really led to it because of the different geographic areas where people are, and how they dispute out, diffuse out to different areas on Earth, which has to do with the melanin and the skin and all that good stuff. But none of this shows us that they're less intelligent. None of this shows us that they're more closer to apes. This is just something you actually make up for the sake of your dumb argument, which is terrible.
popular movie, Remember the Titans, where there's a banana tossed around between the black coach, played by actor Denzel Washington, and an opposing bigoted white coach. Racist, isn't it? But why is tossing a banana
No, just eat the banana.
to somebody with dark skin racist? Why not a pomegranate or a plum? Because monkeys like bananas. So, again, what you're expressing is that they're more like a monkey than you are. The entire concept of human
Which is wrong. I mean, how many times do I have to say this? It's wrong. Like, they're not actually accurate. It's just like, I don't know, it's just like your Bible, making claims with no evidence. There's no evidence that supports that. Just because you're darker skin, based on literally your geographical area, which affects your genes, and then your descendants are more to be darker, doesn't mean you're less evolved than, I don't know, people with light skin. That's not how that shit works.
evolution is a racist idea. And the father of modern evolution clearly expressed those views in his books from the beginning. Conceptually, Charles Darwin made what he believed very clear in his expose of human origins titled The Descent of Man, where he said, at the same time, the anthropomorphous apes, that's the apes that look like people, will no doubt be exterminated. The break between man and his nearest allies will then be wider, even than the Caucasian and some ape as low as a baboon, instead of as now between the Negro or Australian and the gorilla. He clearly implied a hierarchy of sophistication, shall we call it, from the baboon or gorilla to Australian Aborigine and Negroes to the Caucasian. Dark skinned, hairy apes have turned into white people over millions of years. He believed Caucasians were supposedly the most highly evolved race on the planet.
Technically, that's not the same thing we both read, but I guess you could get whatever the fuck you want to get from that. If Darwin believed men are better and advanced than women, evolved better than women, is he right? Clearly, technically not. It depends on what he's saying. If he's saying biologically they're more stronger and all that, yes. If he's saying they're more intelligent, clearly not. Clearly not. So it really doesn't matter what Darwin's opinion is. Yes, we give credits to the fact that he actually, expand the field. Nonetheless, it's not the end all no all for evolution. So it's not like quoting the Jesus in the Bible. That's not what Darwin is. Darwin is not Jesus of evolution. This is just bringing it down to the religious people who can't understand common sense. Darwin is not Jesus, and for crying out loud, stop making this kind of claims or this kind of dumb examples like it's gonna change anything. Evolution does not support racism, systematic racism. I guess let's be specific. This guy has actually not fucking addressed systematic racism, yet he put it in his fucking title. I guess that's another lie from another Christian, which is as a no surprise.
So again, the lighter the skin tone you had, the more evolved that you were. Conversely, the less white you were, the less evolved you must be. It seems
Thank you for making a dumb argument that doesn't make any sense. It's not something you can even support because you're just making these claims and you can't even find anywhere in evolution that supports this idea.
so obvious then that some races may have evolved to a different level of intellect or ability than others, which meant that some races are superior and some inferior. Now,
Just because we're more intelligent than, I don't know, pigs doesn't mean we're, how do I say this? Doesn't mean we're necessarily superior. Pigs evolved to what they are because they, fit better for the environment and they evolved to what they are. And we evolved to what we are to fit better to our environment. That doesn't mean we're better or we're greater than pigs. I mean, we're certainly more intelligent, but that's not the point of evolution. That's not the point of natural selection. The point is not to get something more intelligent, it's to get it to be more fit. And if it to get to more intelligent leads to it to be surviving better, that's what we will get. Thus, humans and all the other species as we have currently. Technically still evolving.
now, lest you just think this is some random opinion of a Bible thumping creationist, understand that even giants in the atheist
No, understand that you're just bullshitting and creationist. Creation. Once he says creationist, which I knew since in Genesis, actually are just a bunch of dumb creationists. There's no hope.
evolutionary community, like the late Stephen Jay Gould, have admitted this. Biological arguments for racism may have been common before 1859, but they increased by orders of magnitude following the acceptance of evolutionary theory. Do you see the connection?
So, I'm sorry. So more people find a very different way to be racist to everybody. That means evolution is apparently supporting racism. It's like the creation of a new tech was made, and all of a sudden people are insulting others through that. All of us, does that mean the tech is terrible? Or it doesn't make any sense. It's just a new way of saying, oh, they're lesser than us, meaning the idea already exists even before evolution. I guess you're not gonna point that part out. The idea already been there before evolution to say they're lesser. Evolution, the theory of evolution came to be, and they're like, oh, look at that. That explains it. That explains it. But they were wrong. So again, so what does this prove? What does this show? Nothing.
Origin of Species was published in 1859. So even though racist ideas were around long before Darwin, after he published his ideas, racism exploded. Prior to this,
Didn't slavery ended like less than a decade right after that? I get it. Jim Crow happened for another 100 years, but then slavery just ended right after that. So if racism technically increased with evolution, shouldn't civil war be like 100 years in the future? Because obviously we have the scientific fact to back it up, saying, "Oh, evolution supports the fact that they're lesser human, meaning they're not even human. They're between apes and us, so we could treat them however they want. We could enslave them." But that's not what happened. Because that's not how science works. Just because few people have racist opinions doesn't mean evolution support that fucking thing. The theory of evolution has no influence over how racist someone is. They just found a new way to be racist. They just found a new term. They just it's like creating another N word to address black people, and they're like, oh, 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 oh. Technology increased racism. Like, it's stupid. It's just a new way for people to insult others, to bring them down. Wow. It's like they've been already doing that.
People were expressing bigotry in an ad hoc fashion because of their natural sinful inclinations. But the concept of human evolution in Darwin's works provided people with a supposedly scientific basis for believing that they were superior to others, fueling racism by orders of
It didn't.
magnitude to, quote Gould. Ideas have consequences. No sooner had these ideas been published, atheistic evolutionary adherents like Thomas Huxley, nicknamed
I guess I should specify what I meant by they didn't. Um, they didn't present a scientific base for it. They already had another opinion to do it either ways, whether science agrees or not. Just like you're ignoring science, which is evolution, to have your ideas. These people would ignore whether they have the science to back it up or not. Now, maybe some scientists during these times were racist and they used the idea of evolution to, oh my God, evolution supports this, so I can be racist as much as I want. But they were wrong. They were wrong. And guess who found that out? Science. Not you, not your creationist dumb ideas. Science.
Darwin's bulldog and one of his closest friends, were spewing racist filth like the following. No rational man, cognizant of the facts, believes that the average Negro is the equal, still less the superior, of the white man.
Okay, nobody gives a fuck about some random bozo's opinion that was part of his own time. Not an excuse to why he was racist, but let's face it, this was still like what, during slavery? So, yeah, he was racist. He was racist as hell. Okay, he was part of his own time. It is different when it comes to Jesus, who actually transcend his own time. If Jesus was spewing racist terms, that says a lot, which it technically did in the Bible. There was a verse where he talks about the woman that came for, I believe, healing, and then he says, you shouldn't give the food of a kid to a dog? Something along those lines. I should find a verse and present it. I'm currently in the process of reading the entire Matthew. I'm still going at it. Wish me luck. Let's finish this video.
In contrast, the Bible teaches that we're all one blood in Acts 17, descendants of our two original parents, Adam and Eve, and that there's only one race, the human race. Until people come to grips with the reality that there's only one race, there will always be, by definition, racial tensions.
Not only did this guy not address systematic racism and just went on a rant about just normal racism, because they're really not the same thing. Systematic racism, it says it in its name. It's in the system. Even if the people are not being racist, the system is going to perpetuate racism. And that's what's going on in the US. That's what critical race theory is trying to teach. That it's in the system, and to make a change, we have to change the system. But you see, this fool clearly doesn't understand what he fucking titled his entire video to be. Evolution does not support racism. You know what does though? The Bible. Because what does this amazing God think would happen when he supports one tribe for like a long ass time and ignore everybody else? Won't that tribe believe they're superior? Discrimination itself, which is at the core of racism, that is discrimination between people. But no, no. Evolution, which doesn't support racism to begin with, is the racist one. And all of a sudden, we care about that because it wasn't like Christians were owning slaves. It wasn't like Christians were supporting Jim Crow. It wasn't like Christians were doing all the oppression. But let's ignore that. Let's ignore that fact and say, well, evolution is racist. The denying of reality is fucking insane. If you make it to the end, thank you for watching. If you like the video, please like and subscribe, leave a comment. Thank you all for watching and have a good day.